Council Dellinger, why do you think you have more experience to be Lieutenant Governor than the other candidates on this stage?
Well, thank you, Mr. Hott. I don't believe in trying to put yourself up by putting others down. So let me talk about my experience, and the other candidates can talk about theirs. As I said in my opening, I've served at the highest levels in the governor's office, and I've seen the crises that this state can confront firsthand, and I've been a part of dealing with them successfully. I know the demands on a governor's time. The governor's got to think about the next meeting, the next crisis, the next day. I think the lieutenant governor ought to be a voice for the long view as much as possible, for the folks who will come after us. I think a lot about that wonderful Native American saying that whenever the tribe would face a major decision, the elders would think about the impact 7 generations from now. We've got the private sector rightly thinking about the next quarterly report. We've got candidates time and again thinking about the next election. As Lieutenant Governor, I want to take the long view, and I want to say that environmental issues are so critical. They have to be looked at during the long view. And Mr. Dalton, we had talked about Cliffside, and what you didn't say is the fact that the plants, the coal-fired plants they're talking about bringing online would double CO2, carbon dioxide emissions. That's what the EPA says, that's what the Park Service say, and these are parts of the Bush administration. And the Bush administration's agencies believe that these new coal-fired plants will have severe impacts on the Smoky Mountains. And so I think the experience of seeing how much the governor has to live and operate day to day makes me even more convinced that we need folks at the table willing to recognize the facts as they exist today and thinking about the implications for tomorrow. And that's why, based on what I've seen, I don't think we should have the new coal-fired plants. I certainly don't think we ought to have 2, and I think we've all got to acknowledge the carbon dioxide emissions and the fact that they would double under what you've proposed.
Consistent with the rules, Senator Dalton, do you wish to respond for 2 minutes?
I certainly do. Thank you for that opportunity. What we're really talking about are 2 huge needs that we need to address. We are a growing state, as Councilman Besse has indicated. We've projected to have 4.5 million people coming into North Carolina in the next 20 to 30 years. We are also in the electronic age. Everybody is using more and more electronics. We have not built a plant in the last 30 years. We talk about preparing for the flood. We also need to prepare for our energy needs. We also need to protect our environment. That's the reason I co-sponsored the Clean Energy Bill. That's the reason I am pushing the Biofuel Center, which is cutting edge. I approve of those conservation measures that we talked about and tax credits for conservation measures. But we do have needs in regard to generation. The offensive pollutants, as I understand it, sulfur and nitrogen, are going to be below what the 4 plants that now exist emit. I will admit there is an issue with carbon, and that's why I have been insistent with Duke Power that they need to come forward with a carbon mitigation plan. I have talked to scientists all over on this, and I would agree that a carbon mitigation plan and reducing the carbon footprint is very critical to that plan. So I think that needs to be done. But let us not lose sight that we are going to need generating capacity, and we will be shutting down 4 dirty plants. The other pollutants decrease under this. So I think you have to be pragmatic, but again, the key is I think we're shutting down 4 dirty plants.
Councilman Besse, do you wish to respond for 2 minutes?
Yes, thank you, sir. Senator, I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to make a comment on this area because it's one in which I have significant personal background, experience, and expertise. I am a member of the North Carolina Climate Action Plan Advisory Group. I chaired the North Carolina Democratic Party Study Commission on the Environment, which made significant energy recommendations, many of which were incorporated in Senate Bill 3 this past year, but some of those recommendations were not taken. In particular, One of the major failures of the bill which passed this past summer on energy was that, yes, it did include a provision to, in theory, require that the electric utilities produce a significant percentage, 12.5% of their growing demand from renewables and conservation and efficiency. But it also gave the Utilities Commission the authority to waive that requirement. And this is the more damaging provision, it included changes in the financing provisions for baseload power plants for the electric utilities, which unfortunately results in a twisted incentive to the utilities to overproject demand growth and to overbuild baseload plants that we do not have to have, and that we can instead meet that demand through energy efficiency and renewables, more cheaply too, I might add. However, I do have to say that I think it's somewhat ingenuous to raise this question for the first time as a candidate in this campaign without having done the work in this area before. I would have welcomed Hampton's help last summer when I was appearing before a legislative hearing seeking to get that problematic provision from SB 3 removed. Unfortunately, he was not to be seen.
Consistent with the rules, Councilor Dellinger, do you wish to respond for 2 minutes?
I won't take that long. I will say, Dan, as you may or may not know, I was in the Attorney General's office working on clean air litigation and policy for years. I was in the governor's office pushing for the clean smokestacks bill, and it took several years. So I've got an extensive record, and I admire your record as well. But we've both been active on the clean air fight, and it's an important fight. And Senator Dalton, you talked about the carbon mitigation plan. Part of my concern with Cliffside and with the 2 new coal plants that you supported is the utility was not going to utilize the most advanced technology in order to capture and store the carbon. And NOx and SOx are serious issues, but so is carbon dioxide, so is global warming. And the most advanced sequestration, carbon capturing technology is being used by that utility for the new facility in Indiana and is not scheduled to be used for the facility at Cliffside. And I believe that if it's good enough for Indiana, it's good enough for North Carolina.
The moderator is going to rule that we're going to move on to the next question, next candidate.